Hi there, and welcome to the C10 podcast, where we mainly talk about leadership and mentoring in 10 questions with changemakers, mostly with ties to the Kansas City area. This is all part of the C of the Major Leagues Foundation, and specifically a tie-in to our C10 mentoring and leadership program. I'm Matt Folks, Executive Director of C of the Major Leagues, and usual host of this podcast. I'm honored that you've chosen to listen this week. Thank you so much. Now, let's get into this week's conversation. This is episode 145 of the C10 podcast, and we're going to be chatting with Chase Coffman, who's part of a great football legacy here in Kansas City. But not only a football legacy, a great football family, but a legacy in the Christian faith. And you'll hear more about both of those things coming up in just a couple moments. But first, around here at C of the Major Leagues, we've been calling this month Thankuary. Basically, it's a chance for us to thank our donors on a more personal level. So we've been sending emails and text messages and making some phone calls. Well, one of those emails included an infographic of how our donors impacted lives in 2023. Knowing that you might be a donor, if you would indulge me for a second, I'd like to share a few of those numbers with you. 29. That's the number of students who received a mentor in 2023. Number of high school students who received a mentor in 2023, not including the college students as part of the program. 182, the number of boys and girls who received baseball and t-ball lessons and character development through the C of the Major Leagues baseball camps and the C in the Backyard T-Ball League. 1,137, the number of hours of mentoring provided by adult volunteers through the C10 Mentoring and Leadership Program. 52,350. That's the amount that was granted to 10 organizations to help children and families in crisis in Kansas City in 2023. If you are one of our donors from the past 18 months or so, thank you. You helped make an incredible difference in so many lives in 2023, and I cannot thank you enough. Whether it was Thankuary or February, October, November, whatever. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you'd like to be a part of helping to make those types of differences here in 2024, there's a link in this week's show notes that will send you to our donation page. Now, back to this week's C10 podcast. This interview with Chase Coffman, former Ray-Pec and Mizzou standout who went on to play for a few teams in the NFL, was recorded in December in front of our students and mentors at Music Theater Heritage inside Crown Center here in Kansas City. As is typically the case, we've removed the students and mentors questions with Chase that we have at the end of the interview. But this was a really fun chat that we're going to pick up right here with me introducing Chase that night at MTH. I hope you enjoy it. Chase Coffman grew up in the Kansas City area, went to Ray-Pec High School before an outstanding career at the University of Missouri. In fact, he was a first-team All-American in 2008 and won the John Mackey Award, which is given to the best tight end in the country. And he got both of those that year. Chase then went on to play 8 seasons in the NFL with Cincinnati, Tampa Bay, Atlanta, Tennessee, Seattle, and Indianapolis. And when you think about 8 seasons with 6 teams, I believe that's correct, 6. Career didn't necessarily go to script. And so we're going to hear about that here momentarily. In 2019, he was selected for the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. Today he's back in the Kansas City area where he's a financial planner, and he's involved with several nonprofits, including spending time with us at our 2nd annual CEO Top Golf back in May. And I've told him, but I'm going to tell him again right now, that the 3rd annual CEO Top Golf Chase is coming up on 5/23/24. So Thursday night, May 23rd of next year. But as he and I got a chance to talk a little bit that night, he was with college student William. Many of you know William. But as we got a chance to talk a little bit and share a little bit about C10, he was just really interested students in what you guys are doing, and wanted to come at some point to be with you guys, to be able to meet with you a little bit more. And so I have no doubt that this is going to be an outstanding night. So with that, let's welcome Chase Coffman.
It's an honor, and like Matt said, I was really looking forward to getting here and seeing and meeting some more of you.
All right, well, we like to start these with what we call pregame batting practice, just a chance to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah.
Your dad and I think your brother have done this, but definitely your dad. And I'll tell you, he aced it. One of our best ever, probably. So with that, here we go. Question number 1. My hero growing up was?
Paul Coffman.
But you know what? In many ways, that's what you want.
I was extremely blessed and am extremely blessed to have some great parents. I mean, another one of those people for me was, growing up in Kansas City, being a football fan, Tony Gonzalez, one of the best tight ends of all time, and now we have another one of the best of all time here in Kansas City now.
Yeah. All right, question number 2, and I've never asked this question before, but my favorite football movie of all time is?
Probably Remember the Titans. Any of you guys seen that? Yeah. It's coming out right when I was really getting into my prime of football playing days and junior high kind of era.
Nice. Very good. And that is a good one. That's one of my favorites of all time. Question number 3, the thing that motivates me to wake up every morning is?
Glorifying God. Like Matt said, my relationship with Christ is the center of my life. It's something that I'm not perfect at and will never be perfect at, but I know that my purpose is here to glorify God, to be loved by God, and to love others, and share that with others. So whether that's playing football, being a husband, being a father, a financial advisor, speaking to groups like this, that's what I want to do.
Okay. And then question number 4, if I could meet one person in history, it would be?
I think that would just go right along with that last question, Jesus Christ.
All right, so let's go back just a couple years. Tell me about 17-year-old Chase Coffman.
So 17-year-old Chase Coffman, I was going to Ray-Pec High School. I didn't know it, but at the time I was dating my wife, which I was very, very blessed to have dated her since high school through college. And football was my passion, my love. I was getting recruited by a number of different big schools. That's exactly what I wanted to do, where I wanted to be, and really trying to figure out what that next step was for me and which school I would choose to go to play football. And so I was praying a lot, trying to figure that out, and I actually wrote a English paper at school with all the pros and cons of the top 4 schools that I was picking.
Nice. Well, one of those, if I remember correctly, one of those was K-State, where your dad was a star. A couple years later, your brother would end up going and being quarterback there. But you
grew up a big K-State fan.
Yeah, but you chose their second biggest rival across the state line. I mean, how did you end up at Missouri?
That way we could hate the first biggest rival. You get them, surround them from both sides. No. Again, like I mentioned to you, prayer was a big part of that decision. There's also a number of kids in the Kansas City area that were getting recruited and actually going to Missouri at that same time that I kind of knew of just through the recruiting process or playing against. And there's a guy, Andy Hill, who was a wide receivers coach there. He recruited the Kansas City area for a number of years, a long, long time. Who's actually the special teams assistant with the Chiefs right now. And he was the guy that primarily recruited me and stayed in touch with me. I would say, the job that he did and just staying in touch and being interested. And Mizzou also provided the opportunity for me to kind of jump into a situation that best fit my strengths as a player. So at Ray-Pec, we ran a wing T offense. If you guys do or don't know what that is, it's got 3 running backs, a fullback, and you run a lot of triple option. You don't throw the ball a lot. So we didn't have a tight end in our offense, a traditional tight end, but we had receivers still, and I was a receiver. So we had some pretty good running backs, and then I was kind of just the outlet if we wanted or needed to throw. You guys saw I'm 6'6", and so it was a pretty easy target just to throw it up high out there, and I'd go get it. Mizzou was going to a spread offense where they would pass the ball a lot, and I didn't know exactly what that meant, but like I said, just praying and kind of going with that gut feeling that Mizzou was the place for me.
So I was actually talking with one of our donors today, and He's from the St. Louis area originally, and big Mizzou fan. He said, "So what are you guys doing at C10 tonight?" And I said, "We got Chase Coffman coming." He said, "Oh, from tight end U." And so, I mean, that was a time, as you mentioned, Gary Pinkel changing the offense a little bit. I mean, that was a time with. Yeah, it was great for tight ends.
We had a number of guys that came through that were talented, and that they did a great job of utilizing our strengths. And I'll say that that's not always the case in life, that, you know, you don't always go to some place that your strengths get utilized. Like you said, the 6 teams over 8 seasons in the NFL. That was a little tougher.
I didn't mean to roll that in.
No. That's all right. That's people go through that in life. And it was an amazing opportunity for me to play in the NFL. And you get to experience 6 different cities and a number of other workouts and tryouts in other cities that I had, you know, in between that. But, you know, Mizzou was a place that, praise the Lord, I was able to step into a place that really utilized me for my biggest strengths. And then, you know, after that, I, again, kind of built up habits and friendships, support systems, support groups to help me through the times where there weren't those things in place in the places that I had stepped in.
As you got to Missouri, I mean, at that point in life, I mean, what were your dreams? What were your aspirations?
Yeah, still as a young man, I told you guys I kind of grew up being in the church as a Christian, going to church, saying God was number one. But I would say at Missouri, my top thing was football, and my goal was to make it to the NFL. There was a lot of times that I had an attitude that probably wasn't as Christ-like as I would like to have say back then, but I still was going to church. We still had some FCA stuff that I attended, but I mean, football and making it to the NFL, that was the dream.
Did you have a fallback plan if that didn't work out?
Get your degree. So I got a hotel and restaurant management degree. So that was something that really showed me that I didn't want to get into hotel and restaurant management. It was more, I was able to squeeze that into 3.5 years. So I played all 4 seasons. That last season I was done in December because I'd got my degree by then. Kind of, like I said, squeezing all those classes into a 3.5-year period. It was business oriented, and coming in from high school, everybody was telling me, you got to put weight on. You got to put weight on. So hotel restaurant management was a degree where I could cook and eat and be around that while making connections and learning business oriented stuff. So there wasn't a real reason to pick that other than that was the plan B, to get a degree, and your character, your values, your work ethic, that will kind of lead you into the next thing if football does not work out or when it ends up not working out.
So do you cook?
I do. I enjoy cooking. My wife does the majority of the cooking just because I go to work most days, and we have 3 kids, and we have some food allergy situations that we deal with a little bit, and she's a lot better at taking care of those than me.
Nice.
I didn't have to discriminate on any kind of food allergies. I took it all in. Like I said, I was always trying to put on weight in my playing career.
Okay. Gary Pinkel was your coach, and if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but before you got there, or as you're getting there, Mizzou hadn't quite turned things around the way that fans had hoped, and some were calling for his head, but obviously he turned things around, developed a great receiving core, and opened things up. But what made him just a good leader?
I would say the things that made Gary Pinkel, who was the head coach at my time, a great leader, were, number one, he was very orderly. Like almost every minute of the day is accounted for, where you're going to be, what you're going to be doing, whether you're going to be practicing, whether you're going to be watching film, whether you're going to be in the training room, eating a meal, resting, all that stuff is basically accounted for. And he did a great job of keeping people accountable in that area, of having high standards and what was expected around the facility by every single person, not just the players, but by the staff, by the equipment personnel, by the trainers, the strength staff, the coaches, everybody. There was a high level of accountability there. And you had mentioned him kind of being on the hot seat and people calling for his head, and especially in the Kansas City media at that time. And Gary Pinkel always tells a story about whenever they were recruiting me, and he was telling Andy Hill, who I'd mentioned to you earlier, like, yeah, we had a conversation with Paul Coffman, Chase's dad, and there's no way he's going to K-State. He's not coming here. And Andy, I'm going to let you off. You don't have to deal with Paul Coffman anymore, basically. Because my dad, as many dads would, was grilling him and really kind of asking some of those hard questions that the Kansas City media and a lot of media outlets that would cover Mizzou were kind of on him about. And, you know, for somebody that was going to lead his son, he wanted to make sure that person was fit. And Andy Hill, he always says that he came back and he's like, nope, I think we got him. I think we got a good chance. And it turned out really, really well for me. It was a great fit for me. There's a lot of great guys that I could have never guessed at the time that I chose to go to Missouri, but that God surrounded me with while I was there, as great teammates and as great people.
And just for the record, K-State had a pretty good coach at the time too, and Bill Snyder, again, a great leader of men.
Yeah, and Bill Snyder, I mean, he's somebody that kind of resurrected Kansas State's, their whole program. And at the time, I mean, he was kind of coming off some really good seasons too, but also there was talk about him possibly retiring. And had I gone to K-State, he would have retired after my freshman year. And I would have had a completely different coach and coaching staff.
Now, wasn't the Mizzou coaches telling you he was going to retire, was it?
No, no, they didn't say that. Right. I think that was the people up in Nebraska.
This is J.R. Buckner, President and CEO of First Federal Bank of Kansas City. We hope you're enjoying this week's conversation. For this week's Student Spotlight, I'd like you to meet one of the students in our C10 Mentoring and Leadership Program.
My name is Norman Davis. I go to Cheyenne Mission North High School. C10 is making an impact on my life by being more involved in my community and trying to give back to it.
First Federal Bank of Kansas City is proud to make a donation this week to the Post-High School Scholarship Fund for seniors in the C10 Mentoring and Leadership Program. If you'd like to join us in this effort to give our future leaders an opportunity after high school, please click on the link in the show's notes. Now back to this week's conversation.
So, as you heard when we started, we've got 2 of our college students are here tonight. Yeah. We have 3 seniors, I think 6 juniors. So within the next couple years, we'll have, just in this room, we'll have about 12 or 13 that want to be in college. Early in your college career, I mean, you're playing sports, you're going to class. What was most challenging? What did you have to overcome early on?
The most challenging was, I was not completely on my own because I had that football program surrounding me, and there is a lot of structure with that, but you get to be on your own and make your own decisions outside of parents or a support staff like this. Now, hopefully you still have people reaching out to you and you're doing that same thing to them for encouragement for yourself or to be an encouragement to them. But I would say that's the biggest thing, just kind of controlling my own time when I did have time, making the decisions that I knew were right or wrong, and having to be accountable for those decisions. You know, I was the one that had to make sure I got up on time. There was no mom or dad or anybody making sure that was going to happen. And I was really good at not getting in trouble like that. But there was some people that, I mean, you don't necessarily have to go to class. Right. People pass classes all the time by just showing up for the tests or cheating or doing all kinds of things. And that's one of the things that at an early age, you got to build that habit of, are you going to do things right, even though it's tough sometimes? And are you going to surround yourself with people that encourage you towards those things that are right? And we had guys on the team that ended up not making it more than a year because they were making those decisions. And even though you have people on the team, you have counselors, you have other people telling you, hey, get up, go to class. You're going to run. You're going to get kicked off the team. There's kind of a 3 strikes rule probably in most programs where, you have some big enough strikes, you're going to get kicked out. And I saw it at every level, in college, in high school even. But you really have more responsibility when you get to that next level, and that's going to continue in everything in life.
So after this great senior year, All-American, national tight end of the year, Cincinnati Bengals drafted you in the 3rd round.
Yep.
What were your emotions at that point? What do you remember from just getting drafted and that whole experience?
Yeah, so if you remember, I told you guys I graduated in 3.5 years. I squished my degree into 3.5 years. So that last semester, that spring semester, I could be off. I could go to the combine. I could work out. I could be ready. I could be ready for my pro day, which each major school has a pro day where scouts come in if you have enough draft eligible guys. GMs come in, all people kind of watch and get eyes on you in person, how you move, what you're thinking, plays wise, how your mind works, all these things. And I broke my foot in our bowl game. So if you guys have seen people opt out of bowl games lately, that's what happened to me. I didn't opt out, and nobody was opting out at the time, and I don't know that if I could go back, I would opt out anyways. But I broke my foot the very last offensive play in overtime of our bowl game. And so I was rehabbing that whole spring. I went to the combine in Indianapolis and just kind of sat there and talked to coaches and GMs. I didn't get to work out. Back in Columbia for the pro day, I sat there and I caught passes from the quarterbacks that were throwing, just standing in a spot. I didn't do any running or anything like that. And Cincinnati picked me with the number 98 pick overall, the last pick in the 3rd round. And that was one of the most anxious times of my life, because if you guys have followed any drafts at all, there's a lot of nitpicking. There's a lot of, well, what do we think they're good at by the media? What do we think they're bad at by, anonymous team sources, by anonymous scouts, by a lot of anonymous people. And as a young man, it's easy to let those things get into your head, even with a good support group that is encouraging you, telling you to let it go in one ear and out the other. Because like I said, up to that point, that was probably the biggest thing in my life that was sitting on the throne of probably my heart at the time. Mm-hmm. So it was a really anxious time. I got a call from an 816 area code, and they had just traded Tony Gonzalez like a month or so earlier to the Atlanta Falcons, and were in need of a tight end, and it ended up being an old friend. A little bit later in the day, I got a call from, I think it's 513 area code, and Cincinnati Bengals. So I was like, all right, Cincinnati, Ohio. Where is it in Ohio? Who's their quarterback? Who they got on their team? What kind of offense are they running? How am I going to fit into this system? And so a week or so later, they flew me out for their rookie mini camp, and kind of got to meet the coaches, meet the guys that I was going to be part of a team with, and go from there.
So at that point, and maybe in the next several months, maybe in the next year or so, what were kind of your expectations of how this NFL career was going to go?
I figured it. So, like you said, I was an All-American. I won the tight end award for the best tight end in the country, and I figured it would just, I would be plugged into a system where they utilized my strengths, and things would just pick up where they left off, and we'd be sitting here on the Hall of Fame ballot today, having a great career and all that stuff. So, ended up, I was on Hard Knocks, so if you want to go back and watch me get cussed out for a training camp, my rookie training camp, you can do that. It was on HBO Hard Knocks, and we were in the AFC North, and it's a ground and pound kind of division up there with Baltimore, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Terrell Suggs, Ray Lewis, James Harrison, if you guys are familiar with him. Just kind of cold, gritty towns up there in the AFC North. We had Chad Ochocinco on the outside that we were throwing the ball to, who is arguably a Hall of Fame wide receiver, and Cedric Benson, who was a workhorse running back from the University of Texas. That was, I think, a 4th overall pick when he came out in the draft. And they really liked to ground and pound to him and throw it out to the outside to Chad and kind of work it that way. And it just didn't seem like a great fit for me. There's a lot of things that I needed to work on as a player to fit into that, but I felt like there was a little bit of both sides, and it just didn't seem like an environment that I would thrive in. I spent 3 seasons there. I didn't even suit up my rookie year. So coming from an All-American season into not even being able to suit up for a game, that was just a killer. And then my second year, had a decent training camp, and they ended up cutting me and signing me back to practice squad after that. And at that time, there was kind of a stigma like, he's injury prone. He's just a soft receiving tight end. He can't block. All things that I was never really able to prove different up until that point. And hadn't been given an opportunity to really do what I excelled at, which is run routes, catch passes. And I had the work ethic to try to block, to give effort, but I didn't have the technique down to do it well. My very first time against NFL defensive ends, who are usually the highest paid people on the other team outside the quarterback. So got cut, spent half the season on practice squad, second half of the season I got pulled up, got some offensive playing time, special teams playing time, and then the next year I got cut again and put back on practice squad for the entirety of the year. So I spent 3 seasons in Cincinnati.
As we mentioned, 6 teams, 8 years, and it just didn't go to script. Yeah. Were there moments in there where you thought, you know what, I'm done with this. It's time to find something else?
So during my rookie training camp, again, this is kind of the first time I'm like really putting my hand in the ground as a tight end and blocking. Like, we had some huge defensive ends that were just like maulers. They weren't like the fast finesse guys. They were just like, we're going to tear your head off. And 2 of the 5 tight ends that were on the roster during training camp, and this is, mind you, we had like real 2-a-days, so both padded practices in Georgetown, Kentucky, that's really hot and humid and muggy and just like a tough place to have training camp, a place that makes you tougher for the season. And 2 of the 5 tight ends, there was 2 of us that were rookies, 3 veterans. 2 of those guys got hurt with season-ending injuries, probably 2 weeks into camp. And the third guy that was the veteran, he got hurt and was out a couple days. But for probably 5 days, it was me and this other rookie. Actually, he's from here, Kansas City. His name's Darius Hill. Went to Blue Springs High School. He was a year older than me and ended up going to Ball State. And me and Darius, for almost a week, were the only tight ends taking reps. And it was all 1s, all 2s, all 3s, offensive snaps, plus scout team, special teams, and like staying before and after for like extra rookie just stuff. And at that point, I was like, I got drafted. I'm guaranteed my signing bonus, and this might be it. Because this is tough. But I made it through.
2016, what was that tipping point that you said, you know what, it's time?
Oh, well, I just never got called up. So I got cut, I think 12 times at that point from at least every one of those teams that you had mentioned.
12 times?
Yeah. A couple times in Cincinnati. Tennessee cut me like 5 times. But it was an opportunity that it was too good to pass up. My body was still healthy enough. Our kids were still young enough that it made sense. And we knew, my wife Stacy and I, we knew that at some point it would end. And it was just, let's enjoy this experience for as long as it's still good with both of us. And as long as, our marriage can withstand that, and as long as my body's healthy to hold up against what it entails to do that, and I'll keep working out for a full season was kind of always my mindset. For whenever the last time I would get cut, that was my mindset. I'll keep working out for a full season, and we'll see where we are then, and then progress wherever and however the Lord sees fit.
Our C word this month for C10 is concentration. Like I said, it seems to fit you. And in our vernacular, a leader with concentration has the ability to focus, hones his or her instincts, and prepares with a purpose. How does that word concentration look to you, just in leadership, in what you went through? And
yeah, that's a good question. So I would say, like, the best example of that is there's a lot of things that are gonna divert your attention, whether it's something shiny and fun and exciting, or on the other hand, something that's tearing you down and not life-giving, life-sucking, that's trying to, harm you instead of be good for you. And you have to concentrate and figure out the direction that you have to go, the things that are going to get you there, the people that are going to help encourage you and support you on that journey, and kind of move aside the rest of the crap. You got to concentrate on your goals, on the things that are most important to you, and kind of let the rest go in one ear and out the other ear, or kind of go by the wayside without giving it much attention. Even if it is, like I said, one of those like shiny, exciting, kind of fun things that a lot of people may give into.
whether it's through your NFL career, whether it's today as a financial advisor, how do you find balance in your life?
It's a constant prayer for me and my wife, for our kids, because with the role that I have right now in financial advising and giving back, in different situations, there's so many things that can tug at your resources, your time, your money, your anything. And so for me and my wife, we're constantly checking in. We're praying about these, trying to submit these things to God and what we should say yes and no to. And there's usually not a loud, answer yes or no, or a note every morning that says, here's what you say yes to, here's what you say no to. It's God kind of leaves that up to us to figure out on our own. And I'm not going to sit up here and pretend like I do it perfectly, but, if I do start overcommitting, I feel that as a family, we feel that. Mm-hmm. And I am able to kind of pump the brakes in different seasons to make sure that, my walk with God is still filled up. My marriage is still filled up. My kids are filled up by their father being around. And then kind of go from there and slowly start reintroducing things again and opportunities to say yes to again.
As I mentioned, you were involved with CO Top Golf, and you had said that night, it's like, I want to come see the students sometime. What did you take from that just experience, and why did you want to come be with the students here tonight?
I would say one of the biggest reasons is I think that, at any level, you talk to people and whether it's me, getting cut from however many times, whether it's me making it to the NFL or successful business people or, GMs or, people that have won championships, done whatever they've done that we excel for, I think they've always had somebody pouring into their life at some point. And hopefully they still have people pouring into their lives. But as a young kid, I told you my dad was one of those people that was kind of all world for me. And then, I went to football camps around the Kansas City area. If familiar with like Neil Smith's name, mm-hmm. He had a camp. I think before Neil Smith put his name on it was Bill Moss. There was guys that I looked up to and, people that I came across that also didn't always do the right things that was, you could see that. Yeah. And so, I had coaches, I had people that I learned from that spoke into my life, and with the platform that I've been given, I love to encourage young adults, grown adults, anybody in doing those things for themselves. So one of the things that stuck out to me is Charles and some of the kids that were there at the Topgolf night, just going and putting themselves out there and speaking to strangers. And, that's something that's going to take you a long way, because you never know who's going to be an opportunity for the next path in your life. And so that was something that I commend any of you for that have done that, and encourage you to keep doing.
Earlier, I asked you about 17-year-old Chase. Yep. If you could go back today, what would you tell him?
Just enjoy every moment. I think I stressed a lot about some big decisions, and maybe didn't enjoy the moments enough. Like I said, that whole draft process for me was like one of the most anxious and not fun processes in my sports life, because I had broke my foot and kind of the whole circumstances around it. But just keep going, keep putting one foot in front of the other as best as you can, and keep going and let God lead it. It's not as big in the long run as you think it is in those days. Very good.
Well, as a thank you, we've got, it's actually a signed copy of One Good Thing, Dayton's book, and then we've got a new Seeing the Major League sweatshirt for you as well. So.
There you go. It looks like it's black and gold.
No, it's navy. It's dark blue. It's kind of the color of the original Kansas license plate that Mizzou fans thought was black. All right. Well, Chase, thank you so much for being here tonight. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for having me.
Well, that does it for this episode of the C10 Mentoring and Leadership Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, we hope that you'll leave a favorable review on your favorite podcast platform. If you didn't enjoy it, or you have other comments or suggestions for potential guests, you can click on the comment link in the show's notes. We drop a new episode at the end of every week, but be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an interview. And if you or your company would like to help underwrite this podcast, let me know. Until next time, this is Matt Folks for the See You in the Major Leagues Foundation saying be safe and take care.